How is everybody doing today? My name is Master Zero, and I'm gonna start the video off by saying I love pretty much every single Alien movie, like even the ones that not a lot of people like Alien vs. Predator. Alien vs. Predator Requiem is arguably better than the first one, and like Prometheus, like I love the premise, not necessarily the characters or anything in that. I think they're stupid for being scientists, but I'm getting way off topic, not really, but like I'm just like I need to talk about Alien Romulus, man, because like it is just an amazing movie, like straight off the gate, like it is beautifully done. Like the way it starts to like the very end, like the third act is like freaking bananas, man, in the best of ways in my opinion. And I know I've seen a lot of people like complain about the third act and stuff like that, but like I love it, man. Like everything about this movie is like phenomenal. It might be like, if it's not my favorite Alien movie, then it is near the top of the list, man. It is just something beautiful. So like how it starts is like you have this like spaceship that's going to like the crash spaceship from the very first movie. Like it's a connection in between the first Alien and then Aliens, you know? So they recover this like thing, you know, like this, we don't quite know what it is like in the movie plot, but like right off the bat you do realize like, oh, it's the freaking alien from the first movie, you know, when it gets sucked out of the spaceship. Like it did survive. It made like this little cocoon, if you will, of like just, it looks like an organic mesh of asteroid looking thing, and like they take it to their spaceship and then they cut it open and everything, and then you realize, oh, it's the freaking xenomorph from the first movie. And then it cuts to like a mining planet that like it very clearly tells you like there is no sunlight in this planet at all, and like people are dying due to mining and stuff like that. And like right off the bat you've realized that this sibling duo, you know, Rain and Andy, like even though Andy is a cybernetic, I need to talk about like David Johnson, the guy that plays Andy, like he is phenomenal, man. Like there's this part in the movie where like they put a new chip inside him, and then like his like acting is just phenomenal, dude. Like I cannot get over his acting, because like you do have like the original Andy, and then as soon as he gets the new microchip thing inside him, like he switches characters like that, man. Like it is so good. But like how it kind of like morphs into this like epic storytelling motive that they make this movie, you know, like it is nothing short of amazing, man. Stuff that like I was kind of used to and dried up with the Alien movies, like especially the Facehuggers and stuff, you know, like they're kind of just there to make the aliens, you know, or like the famous like chest burster scenes and stuff like that, you know, like they're just there for plot development. But in this movie they orchestrate them so freaking well, man. Like there's this one scene where it's just like, I guess it's technically like ankle deep water, you know, and like they undo the cryopods and stuff like that, and then it wakes up the, like there's like, I don't want to say hundreds, but like there's plenty of Facehuggers in this room, you know? And then the fact that like they're just like swimming in the water and you can't see them and stuff, like they actually made the Facehuggers terrifying, man. It's not just like a plot to get the xenomorph in this movie, you know, even though that does come later. But like it is just like everything about this is orchestrated so beautifully. And like another thing about this movie is that like the technology and stuff, it's like right out of the first movie, man. Like I do not know how they like just have the same type of technology, even though it's like I don't even know how many years in between the first movie and this movie, but like the technology in this movie is like I said, man, it's like straight out of the first one, and it is phenomenal, man. I'm gonna say phenomenal a lot in this video because like I cannot get over this movie, you know? So yeah, how the plot kind of like organically coexists and like continues forward is that like Rain is denied leaving the planet because like apparently because a lot of people are dying, that her hours are like extended to like years, you know, and like obviously that makes her depressed, and like she's with Andy and like they're trying to get out together, but then like her friends end up saying like, yo, we have this mission where there's the spaceship that's like right at the orbit of the planet that we could actually fly to, so we're gonna steal their cryopods and stuff. And then it just like orchestrates itself from there, dude. It's just so freaking beautiful, like storytelling wise, everything wise, man. It's just like I cannot stress enough how great this movie is. So these two guys, Spike and Tyler, you know, like they need Andy to open the doors and stuff like that for them so they could get to the cryopods. Like that's the whole mission of this, but obviously things go sideways. But then right off the bat you find out that like Spike is kind of a dick, I'm not gonna lie. Like he's pushing around Andy all the time, and he's like belittling him, you know, just because he's a synthetic. And like there is a plot point behind that, why he's so mean to him, because you find out that his parents, I think for sure the mom, I don't know if it's both the parents, but like his mom died due to a synthetic like deciding like, okay, we have to, some of these people have to die in order for like all these other people to survive, you know? So like you kind of get an understanding, but like when he dies, man, like you kind of feel relieved, if that makes any sense, you know? Like he's a dick for the sake of being a dick, and like whenever he is dead, kind of like a bunch of other horror movies in the past, you know, like there are characters that like once they die, you're just like, yeah, like you're rooting for the bad guy, you know? In this case, the Xenomorph. Another character that's really like I felt very bad the entire time for is Kay, you know? And you find out pretty early on that she's pregnant during this entire endeavor, and like she stays on the ship while like Tyler and Spike and Andy, they get trapped inside the room with all the facehuggers, you know? Like she stays on the ship, and Rain and the pilot, you know, like they have to go inside this shuttle to find like how are they gonna rescue Tyler, Spike, and Andy inside this room. And then they find this like synthetic that's like half decayed, I guess, like half of his body is just gone. And then you find out the synthetic is actually Ash from the first movie, but technically he's not the same synthetic. He is a different model, I guess, but like the same model but a different one, if that makes any sense whatsoever, kind of like Prometheus. So in this movie his name is Rook, and they decide to like, okay, well, we're gonna use his chip to like give it to Andy so he has access to all the doors and stuff like that that he didn't have access to at the beginning, you know? So that's where like the shift changes whenever he puts the chip in, and it takes a little bit of time for him to like get reactivated, you know? He has to reboot, and like that entire time during it, like the suspense is like through the roof, man, because like Tyler and Spike, they're getting attacked by these facehuggers, and Spike has this like electric stick thing, like cattle prong thing going on, and like he's trying to like fend for his life to like stop the facehuggers and stuff, and at the last second, man, he's about to get attacked, or I think it's Tyler that he's about to get attacked, and like Andy at the last second like grabs the tail and like throws it against the wall and stuff. Like I love that scene so freaking much, because like I said at the beginning, you know, like they make the facehuggers scary, man, and like it's such a refreshing feeling to have that, like something that was so minuscule in the other Alien movies, like you kind of make them like the star of the show, at least like during this scene. So anyway, like they've narrowly escaped the facehuggers, you know, the door closes, but one comes out and like just latches itself on. Like the first instinct it does is like latch itself onto the pilot, and like of course everybody's freaking out, they have no idea what's going on, and they try to remove it from her, obviously, as you would, but they notice that the tail is like strangling her every single time that they try to pry it off. So Rain has the idea of like, oh well, I'm going to like activate the synthetic, maybe he has any clue of what's happening. And Rook comes online and he tells him like, hey, like this pretty messed up thing happened. Like they look up and they see like the original Xenomorph, you know, is just like hanging on the wall, and like the acid made like this huge hole in the ground and stuff. And like he tells them basically like it was an onslaught. Like once they did retrieve the first alien, like he woke up pretty much instantly and just wreaked havoc on the station. And so Rain has the idea like, hey, why don't we just freeze the tail, and then that way we could pry it off of her. And when they finally do that, you know, Rook is just like, oh well, there was still a chance that it did what it meant to do. And they were like, well, what is that exactly? But obviously the audience knows like, oh well, she's impregnated with the freaking chest burster, like the Xenomorph is gonna come back to life, you know, which is very cool stuff. So anyway, Andy having like the new chip inside him, like his priorities change. His first priority was to like protect Rain at all cost, but like now it's to do what's best for the company, you know? And like the entire time I was like, dude, this is such good acting. Like every single time he's just on the screen, like I love it so much. So Rook kind of pulls Andy off to the side, and it's just like humans they're too emotional, like they don't have the necessary things they need to like get the job done, i.e. kill the pilot, you know? So Andy brings it upon himself to kill her, you know, because like they don't want the chest burster or Xenomorph to come back to life, you know, like obviously, as you would. So he's chasing them, but then Spike like grabs the pilot and is just like, no, we're leaving, like we don't care if the other ones get left behind, like we're leaving because Andy is a psycho killer at this point. So they leave the shuttle and they go back to their ship and stuff, and then Kay is in there's just like, what's happening? And then this like amazing scene again, like I'm gonna keep saying like these scenes, every single scene in this movie is just phenomenal, man. But like she has this like x-ray device thing going on, and like she scans her chest and you see the like facehugger in there, and that's beautifully orchestrated, man. And like the fact that they don't like just drive home the technology that much is kind of like, okay, well here's the technology, it's normal for them, so like why wouldn't it be normal in the movie, you know? So like they don't draw that much detail or anything about it. They're just like, oh, okay, well, there's something inside, and immediately, man, like, it starts like ripping open, and it's like, it's so gruesome. And like, another thing I have to say is like the practical effects, man. Like, as far as I know, it was almost all practical effects except the parts obviously where they couldn't, you know, it had to be digitally altered. But like everything, like the facehuggers, you could tell they were like puppets and stuff half the time, or more than half the time. And like the way like it rips open, like it wasn't even like the chest right here. That's why I keep going like to this side, because like it rips open like right here, and like you could see it like coming apart. It's not just an instant like, you know, like the other movies. Like you actually like feel her pain, and like obviously during the struggle of that, like her foot kicks the controllers and the spaceship just careens into the shuttle that the other three are in, you know. And that's the point where Rain decides to ask Andy, like, Andy, what's your primary objective? And he tells her, like, my primary objective changed. And like that kind of doom and gloom like washes over everybody, including the audience, you know, especially me, like watching the movie, you know. So Tyler, Rain, and Andy, they decide like, hey, we need to get back to the ship, you know, like we need to leave this place at all costs. So there's this one scene where it's like they go into this hallway, and like the facehuggers have made like this, like, I guess like organic hallway, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Like it's just a bunch of black ooze and stuff everywhere. It kind of reminds me of the skin of the xenomorphs, you know. And like they're just like, oh, maybe we should find another way around, you know. And Andy's like, that's probably a good idea. So they leave, but then Tyler hears Kay, and obviously he goes to save her, and that ultimately leads to his downfall, you know. Like he looks up, and like you see like, I don't know how many xenomorphs there are, but there's a few, you know, and they pull him up and you just see blood like oozing down. But luckily Rain has Kay, and they decide to leave. But Andy, like, he goes into like one of his, like, I'm gonna call them seizures, I guess, like robotic seizures, and like he falls down, and usually Rain's there to like help him, like put the chip inside him and like turn it, you know, kind of rebooting him to go back to normal. But like they decide to leave him because like he's not himself at this point, you know. Another thing I didn't even mention until like I'm gonna mention it right now, but like the fact that like it ties into Prometheus, man. Like I never thought that would have been possible. Like I love that premise of the movie so freaking much, and like the black ooze that was in that movie makes an appearance in this one, even though it's slightly mollified, you know. But like they have that in there. That's the original, or not their original plan, but like that's Rook's plan to like, hey, we need to bring this back to the colony, back to the company, you know, because they could make humans immortal essentially, you know, because they tested it on the rat, and like it was a dead rat, and like they injected it and it came back to life. But then you like pan to the rat afterwards, you know, and it's just like all this like organic alien looking stuff shooting out of its skin and stuff. So obviously it's not ready just quite yet, but they have that in the elevator, and like Rain stops the elevator and is just like, hey, I'm gonna have to save Andy because like essentially he is my brother, you know, like she still has feelings for him. So she stops the elevator, tells Kay like, hey, go to the spaceship, we will meet you there. And so she goes back, saves him, and it's just like, I need to take the chip out of you. And he puts his hand over his little slot thing to prevent her from doing that, and she's just like, hey, like if you want to survive, like the only way to survive is removing the chip. So ultimately he agrees, you know. And original Andy's back, and like again, man, I have to talk about David Johnson's like performance, dude. It is just so good. The fact that he could like switch between these personas is just so freaking amazing. But like they go to the elevator chute, and Rook is there just like preventing them essentially. He's just like, oh, we need what's best for the company, and since you already have somebody going to the spaceship with the thing I need, like y'all guys are essentially dead weight at this point. So he refuses to let them in and stuff. Well, they finally get the elevator open, and Rain decides to turn off the zero gravity because a bunch of aliens are coming, you know. And like the fact that like they didn't use the guns in the first place is because like obviously the acidic blood is going to drain through the space shuttle, and like everyone essentially dies at that point because there's no going back from that, you know. And that scene is so freaking tense because like Andy the entire time is telling her like how much bullets she has left in the gun, and like you just see the acid like just forming in a circle and stuff like that around them, and they have to maneuver through it once all the aliens are done to get to the other elevator shaft, you know. And since the zero gravity's off, they decide just to float up. So anyway, they're like floating up, and the gun gets jammed, and like, or first falls off of Rain's hands, and she's trying to catch it, but then it gets jammed into the like one of the corners of the elevator shaft, and like Andy's already up there, and like you see the gravity is on a cycle, so like it's fixing to go back on again, and like Rain doesn't quite make it, so she falls, but luckily she catches the ladder, and then like you have the xenomorphs like underneath her, like trying to get to her, you know, and it's just like, again, the tension, man, is just perfect on every level. So Andy stops the elevator from like crushing Rain essentially, and like the only complaint I have like during this scene and like throughout the entire movie, I guess, is like Andy says, "Get away from her, you bitch," you know, that what Ripley says in the second movie, and like that was kind of like forced on it, you know, if that makes any sense. Like they didn't really need to say, they could have said like "get away from her," because he does say "get away from her," and then there's a kind of a long pause, and then he says "you bitch," which yeah, you could argue that he has like when he's normal Andy, he's kind of like, you could tell like something's wrong with him and the way he talks and stuff, and he kind of stutters and stuff. Like he's not all the way there in terms of like robotics, like he's not at 100%, but when he puts the memory chip in, he's like a completely different person, you know? So anyway, like after all of that like tension building and stuff like that, they finally make it to the spaceship, and like Rook the entire time is telling Kay like, "Hey, turn on autopilot so I could get you out of here," and like you have no idea what Kay's gonna do, but then when they do make it to the spaceship, she's just like, "Oh, what took you so long?" you know? And like during the elevator scene, like she decides to inject herself with like the black ooze from Prometheus that I stated before, you know, with the dead rat alien thing. Like we have no idea what's gonna happen, but her being pregnant, you know, it's kind of foreshadowing like what's to come in the third act, man, that I keep talking about. Like it's so perfect. Well, anyway, they're like about to go into cryo sleep and everything, and you think like the movie's gonna be over, but then out of freaking nowhere, like Kay's pod, like Rain puts Kay inside the cryo sleep chamber thing, you know, and like she's about to go in, she tells Andy, like hooks him up to the computer, and it's just like, "Oh, you could sleep until we get to our destination." But out of nowhere, like Kay's pod starts like flashing warning signs and stuff, and Rain opens her pod, and her stomach is huge, man, like progressively like more than what she showed when she was originally pregnant. So obviously the black ooze did something, you know, and she's just like, "Get this out of me." And so Rain just like helplessly watches as she gives birth to this like huge alien egg thing, which is like, that whole scene in and of itself is like so messed up. Like the entirety of the movie, I felt so bad for Kay, which she plays Dora the Explorer, by the way, which is another thing that was like really mind-boggling for me, you know, like this actress had range. But anyway, like Rain decides like, "Oh, I'm gonna freeze the alien egg so like whatever is inside that thing doesn't attack us," which, as you would, you know, like sensible thing to do. But then she kind of pauses because like the egg like opens up, and you see like kind of a humanoid baby inside there, you know, but then like due to the acid inside the egg, like it melts and then like falls down into this like, I guess, hangar type thing that's underneath their spaceship. And like throughout the third act, man, the entire time I was just like, what the actual hell is happening, in like the best of ways, you know? Anyway, like Rain decides to like go into like the little hangar area, and I say little, but it's quite big, you know? And you find out that like the baby, I think it's called the offspring in this movie, you know, even though I don't think it's necessarily named in the movie, but like it is grotesque, man. Like it kind of reminds me of like the things from Prometheus, you know, like the white dudes with like the black eyes. Like it kind of had that face, but it had like the structure of an alien, and it had like the alien tail and stuff, but it was like completely white and pale and stuff. Like everything about it was so freaking grotesque, and like I loved it, man. I loved it so much. Like it was perfect for an alien movie. But anyway, like Andy wakes up and tries to save Kay at this time because the offspring is like going towards her, and then Rain is still in the hangar still trying to find it, but like obviously the thing is going back to its mother to try to nurse. But like when Andy tries to save her, you know, like he just gets slashed in half, and Andy dies, man. He freaking dies right then and there, and Rain's just like, "Oh my god, what happened? Like, why is this happening?" Pretty much the entirety of the third act, and pretty much the entirety of the movie, I might add. And then when Rain finally gets to where they're located, you know, like Kay is dead at this point because the offspring is just like eating at her chest, like trying to nurse, man. Like it is so grotesque. Like everything about this creature, man, is so freaking and grotesque, and like it's just like horror filled, and like everything about like body horror aspects of it, like the alien aspect of it, like it is perfectly orchestrated, man, in the best way possible. It is so beautiful. Yeah, I don't want to get into the plot that much, man, because like I really want y'all guys to see this movie. It is so phenomenal in every way possible. Obviously, I've said that word I don't know how many times during this review, but like it is just like I cannot get enough of this movie. I'm probably gonna like rewatch it over and over again because like in all honesty, it is one of my favorite Alien movies. Like the way that it just like orchestrates the plot going forward, like well done on every level. Like the pacing, the way they do the facehuggers, like actually make them a threat, you know? And like not to mention the third act with the offspring and everything like that, like everything was just well done on every level, man. So I'm gonna stop talking about the movie now. Like the video is gonna be over, but man, I cannot get enough of this movie. Like I said, man, I'm probably gonna give it like a rewatch over and over again because it is one of my favorite Alien movies. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Leave a like down below, subscribe, ring the bell, become a member. You get videos a day early, and check out the merch. So with that said, I have been Master Zero. Y'all guys have been fantastic, and I will see y'all in the next episode. Later days.